They laughed when I spoke, pretending not to. I kept smiling, letting them enjoy it. By the next morning, the same voices that mocked my accent were reading a clause they never noticed, the one that made me their employer. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments from where you are watching this video. The dinner was staged like a proposal, not a business milestone. Linen napkins stood like small tents beside polished forks. A looped slideshow ran our metrics on the back wall. The host said, "Vision," every fourth sentence without blinking. I sat between Todd and Eli because seating charts love politics. Mark took the head, of course, with the practiced grin. My name card had an extra R that nobody fixed. The room smelled like lemon butter and headlines. I kept my shoulders relaxed and counted breathing like reps. Mark tapped his glass and stood before the crab cakes cooled. "To the man who believed in me," he began loudly. Laughter rose too early, like people following a cue. He winked and pointed my way with 2 fingers. "Ar-joon," he said slowly, stretching the vowels like gum. Someone snickered under breath and coughed to hide it. Todd covered his mouth and stared at the centerpiece. I watched faces, not hands, and filed expressions quietly. There is a difference between laughing near you and laughing at you. I lifted my water and matched the room's energy. Mark kept talking about hustle and grit and American dreams. He named my college twice and missed it both times. He said how I had numbers and noodles, meaning neurons and models. The table chuckled, thinking it was clever, not cheap. Eli shifted in his seat and checked investor faces. I looked at Lisa across the table. Her jaw tightened. Mark raised his glass higher and said, "Accent or not, he codes like lightning." The applause came like rain on a metal roof. I stood to give thanks, calm and careful. My sentences were short and my pace was steady. "Thank you for believing in the work," I said first. "Thank you to our clients for hard feedback," I added next. Mark leaned in and whispered, "Keep it fun, buddy." I smiled and ignored the whisper completely. "The model improved because the data was honest," I said. "Tonight, we honor that honesty, not performance." A laugh broke from the end of the table anyway. It sounded like a shoe scuffing a gym floor. I told a short story about a failed route simulation. I kept names out and numbers in place. "We broke a shipment on paper," I said. "Then we fixed it." The lesson was simple, even for loud rooms. "Failure is cheaper in testing than in real time," I said. Mark raised his eyebrows, bored by context. Todd asked loud, "Say that again, Ar-joon." He stretched my name like a rubber band and smiled. The table laughed because courage loves company. I did not flinch, and I did not repeat myself. I finished the point and set my glass down. Mark clinked again and took over with a joke. "He says big words in 4 syllables, he said. "I hear profit anyway." Heads bent toward plates as laughter thinned. Lisa covered a sigh with her napkin and wrote something. I noticed Eli's eyes flick to a partner at the far table. That partner typed a note under the linen shadow. "Mockery travels faster than mail, but slower than documents." Dessert came with candles nobody asked for. Mark told the server to bring the check to him. He liked the look of paying with other people's money. "Tomorrow we open the Series A," he announced. Eli nodded like a man already quoted. "Ready for your roadshow, Ar-joon?" Mark asked, leaning across bread plates. "Maybe ask Siri how to say valuation with confidence." He grinned and waited for impact. The laugh landed shallow and stuck to the tablecloth. I wiped my mouth and set my napkin carefully. My voice stayed even when I answered. "Tomorrow we file paperwork," I said. "Roadshows come later." Mark rolled his wrist like a man waving off weather. "Paperwork, paperwork," he sang into his glass. "You love that part, Ar-joon." "I do," I said. "It keeps promises honest." Todd threw in a soft "preach," like a back row echo. Eli smiled without teeth and shifted his chair. The slideshow looped to our cap table, tiny in the corner. When the check arrived, Mark signed with a flourish. He added a tip large enough to build a rumor. He pulled me into a side hug as cameras flashed. "You're the math," he said into my ear. "I'm the mouth." His breath smelled like whiskey and victory. "Try to say congratulations without a traffic jam this time." I stepped back and looked at him level. "Congratulations," I said cleanly, with no apology. He laughed like I proved his point. Outside, the air was cold and smelled like rain hitting hot stone. The team huddled under the awning like a locker room. Eli took a phone call and said words like runway and optics. Todd replayed Mark's lines for the interns, louder than before. Lisa came to stand beside me without a smile. "You okay?" she asked softly, eyes on the street. "I'm disciplined," I said. "That's different from okay." She nodded once and exhaled. He thinks the room forgives him because the numbers rise, she said. Rooms forget, I replied. Contracts don't. Mark bounded out and clapped my shoulder twice. Big day, buddy, he said. Practice your vowels for CNBC. I met his grin with a steady face. Practice reading, I said. It helps. He laughed and walked toward the black SUV. You kill me, he said, not hearing the sentence he deserved. The interns climbed into ride shares and shouted goodnights. The rain started in neat lines across the sidewalk. I walked to my car and sat still with the engine off. The city noise softened behind the glass like a distant TV. I unlocked my briefcase and checked the folder again. The tabs were labeled in quiet colors for easy eyes. Founders Agreement, Voting Threshold, Board Composition, Assignment of IP. The one I touched last had a yellow flag, Protective Provisions. It carried a clause Mark had never read fully. People seldom read the paragraph that saves them or ruins them. I drove home slow and let the wipers set a rhythm. My phone buzzed with celebratory texts that didn't need replies. Carla, our accountant, sent a thumbs up and a calendar reminder. I forwarded her nothing and typed only, confirmed. I brewed tea and opened the laptop at the kitchen table. I reviewed tomorrow's filings line by line. Each field looked like a nail needing only one strike. Precision is a quiet hammer. I checked the clause again and smiled once. Small. Before sleep, I replayed the toast without bitterness. I sorted the night into columns. Insult, witness, leverage, action. Insult and witness go in a notebook. Leverage and action go in a folder. Emotion belongs on a page I never send. I set an alarm and stacked papers by the door. Tomorrow morning, I would speak clearly in the one language everyone understands. The language of signed obligations and enforceable choice. We started in a subleased room behind a tire shop. The walls rattled when trucks idled at the curb. I wrote the first routes on a used laptop. Coffee lived in a thermos that never truly closed. Money was ours, so we watched both. Mark brought sales calls and 2 test shippers. Todd tracked deliveries on a whiteboard with squeaky markers. I handled code and error reports and customer panic. At night, I fixed what morning had broken. The product looked simple, but the math carried freight. We scored weather, traffic, and driver breaks in one stream. Dispatchers wanted answers, not jargon or slides. I learned to talk in minutes saved, not models trained. Early clients paid in monthly ACH and questions. They asked if the engine broke on holidays. I built a calendar layer and kept the answer short. It adapts, I said, and it did. Quiet reliability replaced swagger most weeks. I kept receipts like a habit my father taught. Every contract lived in 2 places, plus paper. I listed rights, obligations, and deadlines in plain words. We used a standard MSA with a short SOW. I added an IP assignment and audit rights. People skim those pages until they matter. Mark said I loved paperwork more than demos. I said paperwork kept demos funded. Our first investor meeting happened in a rented co-working room. Eli sat across a simple table and asked clean questions. Who owns the code? He said first. We do, I answered, pushing the assignment file forward. He flipped pages and nodded once. Cap table? He asked next. Mark grinned and pointed my way. I slid the spreadsheet over and stayed quiet. Eli liked calm tables more than brave speeches. By quarter 3, we signed 3 mid-size carriers. Cash flow stabilized and stress changed flavor. Mark wanted billboards and an AA, bigger office. I wanted a server with redundancy and a quiet door. We compromised on 2 desks and a 1-page brand sheet. He picked the font, I picked the logging framework. Todd asked about titles for LinkedIn. I wrote co-founder and engineer and closed my laptop. Titles attract rumor, logs attract fixes. The founder's agreement took a week of evenings. Lisa, then our outside attorney, asked direct questions. What happens if someone grandstands? She asked. Voting thresholds, I said, and pointed at the draft. Protective provisions required my signature for share issuances. Board seats expanded only by unanimous vote. Sale of IP demanded written consent from all founders. Lisa leaned back and watched Mark's face. He smiled without reading and signed anyway. We hired 2 engineers with steady hands. They wanted clarity on equity and hours. I kept both honest and predictable. No midnight heroics, no family talk and stand-ups. We reviewed code at 4 each afternoon. Bugs waited for the process, not the loudest voice. Mark visited reviews and told jokes that landed soft. The team learned I laughed once and then merged carefully. Culture formed with repetition, not posters. Clients taught us where pride breaks. A big shipper missed a window during Thanksgiving week. We owned the failure in one sentence. Then we shipped a patch before lunch. The client asked if we had real support during holidays. I started a rotation and paid cash for the hours. Todd complained about costs for a day. Then he bragged about our reliability to a prospect. Mark used the line on stage 2 weeks later. I let him have it because the service existed. When we filed our Delaware C Corp restatement, I insisted on a clause. Any financing round required founder approval under specified terms. No board expansion without unanimous consent until post-Series A. Any change to IP needed my written sign-off. Lisa read it twice and circled 2 commas. Small edits, she said, and fixed them. Mark skimmed and asked if it slowed fundraising. It slows mistakes, I said, and kept the paper moving. Todd initialed every page like it was a gym waiver. By spring, the talk in rooms changed. Investors wanted a face for the company. Mark liked that sentence almost too much. He booked podcasts and started practicing answers in mirrors. I kept shipping features and drafting vendor policies. Eli asked if I planned to speak more. When it adds value, I said. He nodded because he cared about closings, not applause. I cared about uptime, not spotlights. Respect grows best in quiet if you let it. The week before the dinner, I had already seen the slide. Mark's personal brand sat larger than our logo. He said it helped convert skeptical rooms. I asked to review the contract stack again. He laughed and told me to enjoy my paragraphs. I did. I read every paragraph like a lock. Protective provisions felt solid in my hands. The toast would come and go. The filings would stay. That certainty steadied my breathing more than any stage ever could. The meeting before the dinner felt like weather changing. Pressure rose, then held. Eli booked a glass conference room near the hotel. The table was too long for our team. Mark liked it that way. He took the top seat and set his phone face up. Todd spread handouts like a dealer. I opened my notebook and drew 3 boxes. Plan, risk, leverage. Those words calm me when rooms tilt loud. Eli started with the pitch order and investor list. 2 funds want speed, he said. They care more about signal than diligence. Mark grinned and drummed fingers on the table. Then let's give them a show, he said. I watched his eyes, not his smile. He wanted momentum more than math today. Eli continued like a man who respects calendars. We'll open with market pain, not features, he said, then a quick path to margin. I nodded once. Mark shot me a wink like we were at a bar. Slides went up on the wall. Mark had changed the typeface again. His headshot sat large on the second slide. The product name shrank to make room. Todd whispered, "Clean vibe," like a hype man. I lifted a hand. "Move the logo back up," I said. "Investors buy systems, not selfies." Mark chuckled and raised a hand like a traffic cop. "Relax, Ar-joon," he said. "We're selling trust. Trust comes from clarity," I replied. "Clarity comes from numbers that hold." Eli glanced at both of us and moved to the next slide. The runway slide used our most conservative spend. Eli kept his voice steady. 18 months without heroics, he said. 21 if growth rate matches last quarter. Mark jumped in and promised 24. He loved round numbers that smiled. I corrected him calmly with one sentence. 21 is our honest ceiling, I said. He waved his hand like he was shooing a fly. We'll get a better lease, he said. We'll charm vendors. Todd laughed and pointed at Mark's suit. I wrote narrative drift in my notebook and underlined it twice. We reviewed questions they might ask. Eli read from a card. Who owns core IP? He asked first. We do, I answered. Assignment recorded and archived. Mark nodded like he built the archive himself. Who controls board expansion? Eli asked next. Protective provisions, I said. Unanimous until post-Series A. Mark's jaw tightened for a second, then relaxed. We're flexible, he said to Eli. Lisa raised a finger without lifting her eyes. We're lawful, she said. Her tone cut cleaner than mine did. The room adjusted around that word. Lisa handed out a short memo I had drafted. It summarized consent thresholds in plain English. Mark skimmed, bored, then smiled. You two and your bedtime stories, he said. Investors want confidence, not commas. Lisa gave him a small professional smile. Commas place money, she said. Confidence spends it. Todd coughed to hide a laugh he didn't mean. Eli collected the memos and tapped them square. We keep both, he said. confidence, then commas. I liked that line because it matched reality. Mark practiced his opener into the glass like it was a mirror. He tested lines that played better on podcasts. He added a joke about my accent he claimed was affection. We lean global, he said, smiling at his reflection. Our founder speaks optimization in 2 languages. Todd winced, then grinned when Mark looked over. I watched Lisa's pen stop mid-word. I let 2 beats pass before speaking. Cut the language joke, I said. It reduces substance. Mark turned, grin still up. It humanizes, he said. It condescends, I said. Pick a vector. Eli stepped between us without moving his feet. Keep the opener clean, he told Mark. Save color for Q&A. Mark shrugged like the stakes were low. Fine, he said. We'll do your monk version. He looked at me, still smiling. You happy, Professor? I ignored the title like a speed bump. I want the round to close without corrections, I said. He saluted with 2 fingers and sat down. Jokes end faster when they meet walls that don't laugh. We timed the deck and ran mock questions. Eli played a skeptical partner with good hair. What prevents you from issuing cheap shares to friends? He asked. Protective provisions, I said again. Founder consent required. Mark tilted his head like that detail hurt him personally. We should show we're nimble, he said. Nimble isn't careless, I answered. Nimble is documented. Lisa met my eyes and nodded once. Eli wrote 1 word on his pad. Discipline. Todd ran through the ops slide and tripped on a metric. He rounded up on-time delivery. I stopped him with a palm and 1 number. 92.3, I said. Not 94. He looked annoyed, then corrected the line. Investors want round wins, he muttered. Investors want repeatable wins, I said. Repeatable starts at honest. He sighed but didn't argue. Eli smiled a little and kept notes moving. Mark closed the run-through with a flourish. I'll handle the room, he said. Ar-joon can handle the nerd stuff after. The phrasing landed like a paper cut. Small, dumb, still bleeding. I kept my voice even and low. We handle truth together, I said. Then the room handles itself. Eli snapped the laptop shut. Good, he said. We're done rehearsing. He looked at Mark for a long second. Stay off jokes about people, he added. Jokes about yourself only. Mark rolled his eyes and promised nothing out loud. As we packed up, Lisa hung back. She spoke softly, like handing me a tool. Protective provisions survive tone, she said. You wrote them correctly. I nodded because that sentence mattered more than applause. Thanks, I said. Tonight will be noisy. She smirked. Tomorrow will be paper, she said. Paper wins. Todd called across the room. Car is here. Mark clapped once like a coach breaking a huddle. Let's go charm some wallets, he said, already halfway to the door. I tucked the memo into my bag and checked signatures. The clause about new share classes sat where I left it. The requirement for unanimous consent sat beside it. The right to appoint a 3rd board seat upon breach sat under both. Mark believed charm beats clauses. I believed clauses outlive charm. Outside, traffic hummed like a machine that never sleeps. I matched my breathing to it and kept moving. On the sidewalk, Eli pulled me aside for 10 seconds. If he goes off script, keep your face flat, he said. Investors watch reactions more than jokes. I nodded. I'm steady, I said. He'll test you, Eli added. He always does before a room. I smiled without showing teeth. He can test, I said. Tomorrow I file. Eli nodded once, satisfied. We stepped into the evening like workers, not fans. The hotel awning glowed like a stage light. I felt the pull toward anger and let it pass. Pride wastes oxygen you need for precision. I reminded myself of the simple plan. Observe, endure, record, execute, 4 verbs, 1 outcome. The dinner would give him a crowd. The morning would give me a clerk and a timestamp. I prefer clerks and timestamps. They don't laugh during toasts. The room glowed like a stage and smelled like butter and money. Mark worked the tables like he owned rent on attention. He introduced me last, as if I were a prop. I shook hands, smiled, and counted breaths between sentences. Small talk circled the same 3 words. Vision, disruption, runway. I answered with minutes saved, routes corrected, and contracts honored. Laughter pooled where data should live and breathe. A partner asked if English slowed my math at scale. I said numbers do not blush under grammar. He laughed anyway and reached for another drink. Appetizers landed, and we watched a reel of our metrics. Mark narrated like a sportscaster calling a parade. He credited the team and patted my shoulder for rhythm. Ar-joon makes it sing, he added, stretching each syllable on purpose. Todd snickered and looked away when my eyes met his. Lisa stared at her glass and then at the exit. I focused on cadence, not faces, and let insult pass through. Eli checked the room like a man counting umbrellas before rain. A junior associate whispered. Cute accent, thinking whispering erased the harm. I folded my napkin once and kept my pulse slow. The toast began before the crab cakes found their plates. Mark tapped his glass and launched into a story. He talked about grit and bootstraps and second chances. He framed my background as a cute obstacle we overcame. He mispronounced my university and waited for laughs like crumbs. Some arrived, polite and brittle, then faded too fast. He codes in 2 languages, he added, then winked. I raised my water and stayed still as a level. To Ar-joon, he finished, and mouths moved before minds caught up. I said thank you and chose short sentences that carried weight. My words held to facts because facts survive rooms like this. I thanked clients for honest feedback that saved us money. I praised our drivers for correcting bad assumptions fast. I spoke of contracts as promises measured in weeks and dollars. Mark groaned softly and whispered, "Fun, Professor." I ignored him and closed with one clean line. "Numbers do not care about accents," I said clearly. Silence stretched, then broke into uneven claps and glances. Todd said, "Say that again, Ar-joon," pulling the vowels like taffy. I did not repeat a single word for his amusement. During dessert, the jokes shifted from me to our customers. Mark called them old-school truckers who found calculators. I saw a client's nephew at the bar, listening hard. I caught Mark's eye and gave a small shake of my head. He smirked and raised his voice another notch higher. Lisa scribbled something on a place card and slid it to me. "I'll stay for the check. Please leave early if needed." I nodded but stayed seated because leaving would feed rumor. The server arrived with candles we never requested or wanted. Mark told her to bring the bill to the big guy. Outside the speeches, business still tried to happen. An investor asked about board expansion after the round. Mark promised flexibility with a reckless wave. I interjected with one sentence about protective provisions. "Unanimous consent until post-Series A," I said, calm as concrete. The partner blinked, surprised I had guardrails installed already. Mark laughed like he found a prank in a filing cabinet. "He loves commas and clauses," he said to the room. "I love closing." I smiled politely and folded the memo inside my jacket. Eli's face read gratitude that I hadn't taken the bait. The server returned, and Mark wrote his name like a signature mattered. He tipped heavy, loud, and mostly for show. Cameras lifted as he pulled me into a loud side hug. "Say, congratulations again," he whispered into my ear. "Better this time." I faced him and spoke evenly without heat. "Congratulations," I said, clean and measured like a cut. The interns laughed and filmed our faces for their stories. Lisa moved past them and met my eyes with steadiness. "Paper tomorrow?" she mouthed, barely moving her lips. I nodded once, and the plan settled like a bolt. We stepped into cold air and a wet sidewalk full of taxis. Mark tossed jokes at the interns like coins into fountains. Todd repeated them louder, as if volume multiplied charm. Eli checked his phone and said the word optics again. I stood with Lisa under the awning and watched the street. "You okay?" she asked, eyes on cars, not faces. "I'm fine. When I am writing," I said softly. "Tonight gave me ink." She almost smiled, then smoothed it away. "He thinks laughter is a receipt," she said. "Receipts require signatures," I answered. "Tomorrow has signatures." Back at my car, I sat and wrote 4 lines. Witnesses noted, phrases logged, clause confirmed. Filing at 8, I recorded the details that rooms forget by morning. The exact phrasing of the insult lives longer on paper. The partner who flinched at the consent clause will remember later. The interns will share clips, but the clerk will stamp forms. Mark will wake to likes, I will wake to filings. Calm replaced anger like gears slipping into place. Anger burns fuel. Precision saves miles on the same tank. I slept well because the plan did not need applause. Protective provisions are boring until they switch the lights. Unanimous consent is dull until it blocks dilution. Assignment of IP feels basic until someone tries theater. The dinner wrote my script in a language I prefer. Tomorrow I would speak in filings, notices, and a scheduled board email. I would use the clause he joked past every quarter. I would not raise my voice once. The paper would do the talking for me. I woke before the alarm and brewed dark coffee without sugar. The kitchen light felt like a small stage I could control. I opened the folder and laid out the tabs in order. Founders Agreement, Voting Threshold, Board Composition, Protective Provisions. Each title calmed me more than sleep could. At 7, I called the registered agent and confirmed their window. "We can timestamp at 8:03, the clerk said. "First batch leaves then." "Good," I said. "I'll transmit by 8. Precision turns nerves into tasks if you let it." I drafted a short board notice using plain language. No drama, no adjectives, only dates and obligations. Proposed. Issuance of new preferred requires unanimous founder consent, I wrote. Action. Withhold consent pending compliance with communication protocol. The protocol existed to prevent surprise dilution games. Mark had pushed that boundary twice during vendor negotiations. I attached the clause and highlighted the signature lines. Then I added a second item, appointment of an independent director upon breach. The right slept inside the agreement like a spare fuse. At 7:30 I called Lisa and kept my voice level. "Sending 2 consents," I said. "Protective clause and independent seat trigger." She didn't ask why, she already knew. "You want me as interim secretary?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "We need clean minutes and tight exhibits." She exhaled like a person stepping from noise into order. "Send them now," she said. "I'll review in 5. I emailed the packet with a short cover line, fax attached. "Please acknowledge receipt. Clarity beats apology when rooms turn hot." I sent Eli a separate message built for investors. "We're enforcing the founder consent clause," I wrote. "Round remains viable post-governance." He called within 2 minutes and skipped greetings. "This protects valuation," he said, voice low. "It does," I answered, "and it prevents promises we didn't make." He paused, then asked, "You expecting fireworks?" I looked at the clock and watched 8 approach. "I expect volume," I said. "Paper absorbs volume." At 8, I transmitted 3 filings through our agent portal. One recorded the board's authority under existing bylaws. One attached the protective provisions as an exhibit on record. One pre-registered the potential appointment of an independent director. None of it changed the world. It changed leverage. I uploaded the clerk's confirmation alongside the board notice. Then I opened a fresh document titled Communication Rules. The first line read, "No jokes in meetings where signatures follow." That one was for me as much as anyone. At 8:30, Mark texted confetti emojis and a fist bump gif. "Roadshow day, Professor," he wrote, cheerful like a radio ad. I replied with a link to the consent and nothing else. He called immediately and started fast. "What is this tone, Ar-joon?" he asked, words running. "This kills momentum." I kept my voice steady and slow. "This preserves ownership," I said. "Momentum without discipline creates fire." He laughed once, short and annoyed. "Investors hate homework," he said. "They love predictable outcomes," I answered. "This creates outcomes." Todd chimed in from a group chat with half-formed jokes. "Professor writing essays today," he typed. "Should we diagram sentences?" I wrote one sentence back. "Please acknowledge receipt of the attached documents." He reacted with a thumbs-up emoji like it fulfilled law. Emojis don't sign consents. Signatures do. I scheduled a noon board call and sent a calendar invite. The agenda had 2 bullets and 1 sentence of context. People drown in floods and in paragraphs. I chose clean water. Lisa called after her review and spoke in precise steps. "Consent language is correct," she said. "Independent seat trigger is lawful upon breach." I asked if she'd chair the call as secretary. "I will," she said, "but you lead the motion." I agreed and thanked her for the clarity. "Prepare 2 outcomes," she added. "One where they agree, one where they perform theater." "Theater meets filings," I said. "Filings win." She didn't disagree. She only reminded me to record the meeting, then hung up. By 9, investor relations started humming like a generator. Eli forwarded 2 quick replies from partners. One appreciated clear governance. One asked if there was founder conflict risk. I wrote 2 sentences he could paste without edits. "No conflict. We're enforcing pre-agreed guardrails," I said. "They protect your dollars from surprise promises." Eli responded with a single copy and moved the message along. Clean phrasing travels faster than charisma on mornings like this. At 10, I drafted the email I wanted Mark to read twice. The subject line was boring on purpose. Consents required before external commitments. I attached the protective clause again and pasted the relevant lines. Then I added an example in one paragraph, calm and specific. Any verbal assurance of board seats during fundraising is non-binding, I wrote. Such changes require unanimous founder consent per section 6.2. I ended with one sentence he would hate and remember. We respect your voice in rooms, I wrote. Respect our signatures on paper. The replies staggered in like late flights. Todd sent a question about whether vendor credits counted as commitments. Not unless they change equity, I answered. He reacted with another emoji and a cool. Mark finally responded at 10:40 with 3 lines. This is not how winners talk, he wrote. We close rounds by vibe, I wrote back without heat. We keep companies by law, I said. The round closes after that. At 11:30, Lisa pinged me a short note. We're solid, she wrote. Your draft minutes ready for my edits? I sent them and confirmed the recording setup. Then I opened a blank page titled Questions for Noon. I wrote 3 only. What commitment did you make last night? Did you promise board expansion? Do you acknowledge the protective provisions? I kept each to 10 words or less. Questions grow power when they arrive clean. Noon came like a gavel without a hand. The call connected and voices settled into boxes. I started with attendance and moved to agenda. Mark opened his mouth first and tried for charm. We don't need all this drama, he said. Too light for the topic. We need signatures, I said. Please acknowledge the documents. Silence stretched 5 seconds, then Lisa spoke like a metronome. Please state your acknowledgement for the record. Eli stayed quiet, listening like a lender. Todd cleared his throat and said, Received. Mark muttered, Received, like a teenager answering a teacher. I read the motion in one breath. Motion to withhold consent on share issuance pending compliance. Lisa asked for a second. Eli said, Second, fast and neutral. Mark protested about energy and speed and sales. I waited until he finished, then repeated the motion. All in favor? I asked. Todd hesitated, then said, Aye. Eli said, Aye. Mark said, Nay, for theatrical balance. Motion carries, Lisa said, and her keys clicked like a clock. Theater lost to timestamps again. I moved to the second motion and softened my tone. Motion to appoint an independent director if any founder publicly promises governance changes. It was a warning shot written months ago with a calm pen. Mark cursed quietly and then laughed to cover it. We're family, he said. We don't need referees. I let one beat pass. Families keep ledgers too, I said. This protects everyone. Eli said, Aye. Todd whispered, Aye, after counting his breath. Lisa recorded the vote with clean keystrokes. Paper tightened around the company like a well-fit brace. After the call, I sat very still and let quiet settle. Anger wanted to arrive late and make noise. I kept the door closed and breathed through it. Lisa sent the draft minutes for signature within 10 minutes. I signed and returned them with 2 clicks. Then I sent one last email to the investor list. Governance stable. Founders aligned on process, it read. Next steps, diligence, then terms. No toast, no joke, no flourish. My accent did not matter in any sentence. The document spoke without vowels. The morning after felt different. Too quiet for victory, too calm for chaos. My inbox was already full by 6. Half the messages carried subject lines like urgent, clarify governance, or need quick sync. The other half were short, respectful, careful. The shift in tone had begun. Paper changes gravity faster than speeches ever do. I brewed coffee and read slowly, one message at a time. Todd's email arrived first. Hey, sorry if I joked too much last night. Didn't mean anything. He added a smiley face, which I ignored. I replied with one line, acknowledged. Let's focus on numbers today. He sent back a quick, yes sir, then nothing more. That was progress. Fear makes manners bloom. Mark's name appeared next. The subject read, You've made a mess. He wrote 4 paragraphs about teamwork and optics, each one louder than the last. Investors don't like rigidity, he said. We looked bad because of you. His last line tried for charm. Next time, loosen up. Let the accent breathe. I deleted the draft response twice before writing the right one. Next time, read the documents before you sign them. I hit send without satisfaction, only precision. Eli called at 7 sharp. He never called that early unless money was moving. They reached out to me, he said, voice low. Mark's panicking. He thinks you staged a coup. No coup, I said. Just compliance. Eli exhaled. Investors like what you did. It reads as control, not chaos, but he's going to spin it. Let him, I said. Truth sits in the filings. Silence hummed for a moment. He won't forgive this, Eli warned. He doesn't have to, I said. He just has to comply. At 8, Lisa joined me at the office. She carried a calm that matched mine. Legal's quiet, she said. That's good. Quiet means respect. She set down her coffee and a printed copy of the minutes. We need signatures for the archive, she added. Todd already signed. What about Mark? I asked. She smiled faintly. He's reading. He'll sign when ego finishes negotiating with logic. By 9, the internal Slack filled with rumors. Someone wrote, "Did Mark lose his board seat?" Another posted a meme about lawyers running the company. I didn't reply, and neither did Lisa. Silence teaches faster than memos. At 10, Mark burst into the office. His suit jacket looked tired. "Congratulations," he said, voice sharp. "You scared half the investors." I looked up from my laptop. Only the ones who didn't read. He threw his hands up. "You could have talked to me, Ar-joon." "We talked," I said. "You just preferred applause to paragraphs." Lisa stepped in before he could explode. "The filings are done," she said, calm but final. "Undoing them requires unanimous consent." Mark's face hardened. "You hid behind paper," he said. "No," I replied. "I built with paper while you performed." Eli arrived 15 minutes later, wearing diplomacy like a tailored suit. "We're all still on the same side," he said, scanning faces. "Investors see leadership, not division. Let's use that." Mark folded his arms. "You're taking his side," he said. "I'm taking the company's," Eli said. The word company landed like a gavel. Mark slumped back, quiet for once. Lisa handed him the pen. "Sign the minutes," she said. He stared at the page as if it bit. "This makes me look small," he muttered. "No," I said. "It makes the company look stable." He looked up and studied me for the first time that morning. Something in his face shifted, a mix of anger and reluctant understanding. He signed, the pen scratching harder than needed. When he left, Lisa let out a slow breath. "You handled that like a surgeon," she said. "Surgeons cut once," I replied. "No need to twist the knife." We sat in silence for a while. The hum of servers filled the room, steady and alive. "He'll come around," she said. "Or he won't," I answered. "Either way, the paperwork doesn't care." That afternoon, the investor call went smoother than I expected. Eli opened with praise about strong internal alignment. I presented revenue growth, churn control, and cost reduction, clean, verifiable, unimpressive in the best way. One partner asked about governance tension. I said, "All votes passed per agreement with full signatures." That ended the question faster than charm ever could. By evening, the office had returned to normal rhythm. Todd sent me delivery metrics without typos. The engineers asked for a day off to attend a workshop. Mark stayed in his office longer than usual. Door closed, but quiet. Progress sometimes sounds like nothing breaking. Before leaving, Lisa stopped by my desk. "You know," she said, "you didn't humiliate him. You just proved reading is power." "I didn't want revenge," I said. "I wanted respect." She nodded. "Then you got both. Just one through silence." That night, I sat at home with my notebook. I drew 2 columns again, noise and proof. Under noise, I wrote laughter, ego, accent, performance. Under proof, clauses, filings, consent, stability. I looked at the lists until they aligned in weight. The math worked this time. By morning, headlines about our funding mentioned stability first, not charisma. The same reporters who quoted Mark's speeches now quoted our filings. The tone had shifted from jokes to respect. My accent didn't change. Their attention did, and for the first time that felt enough. By noon, I knew the next move needed to be written, not spoken. Mark's calls went to voicemail. Investors pinged for clarity, and Todd sent screenshots of confused messages from clients. That's when I wrote the email that would shift control, not by anger, but by law. The subject line was sterile, harmless, governance and compliance summary. For immediate review. The tone would be my scalpel. I opened a blank window and began typing, each word designed to sound boring enough to be binding. As per our founders' agreement, sections 6.2, 6.4, all structural changes, new equity classes, or verbal commitments to potential board seats remain contingent on unanimous founder consent. Any deviation constitutes a procedural breach and activates the independent oversight clause filed yesterday. That single paragraph was the knife's edge. I added one line of calm steel underneath. This reminder ensures compliance, preserves investor trust, and maintains our valuation integrity during Series A discussions. Then came the sentence that turned the knife without leaving a mark. As acting chair for this compliance meeting, I'll be coordinating with Lisa Romero as Skenner for official correspondence going forward. That moved Lisa's name into the chain of authority, legally and visibly. It meant any further governance communication flowed through her desk. I read it 3 times before sending. No threats, no heat, only clauses and timestamps. I hit send at 12:09 p.m. 5 minutes later, Lisa texted, "That was poetry disguised as law." Eli emailed back within 10, "Received. Thank you for confirming boundaries." Then silence, the kind that means everyone is reading twice. Mark's reply landed at 12:37 p.m., and it was shorter than expected. "You're making me look bad." I wrote back, "The paperwork reflects reality, not opinion." Todd messaged privately, "Are we still cool?" I replied, "We're professional. That's better than cool." By 1 o'clock, Eli called. "2 investors just requested your summary deck, not Mark's," he said. "They think you're leading the round." "I'm leading governance," I said. "That's the foundation." "Same thing in their eyes," he replied. At 2, Lisa appeared in my doorway with her laptop. "You're officially acting chair," she said. The independent seat triggered automatically once he committed outside. "Consent." I looked at her. "So it's done?" "Filed and time-stamped," she said. "He can yell, but he can't undo it without your signature." At 3, Mark finally stormed in. No audience this time, no camera. "You blindsided me," he said. "No, I gave notice," I replied. "You ignored it." He laughed once without humor. "You're still chasing revenge over a joke?" "Not revenge," I said. "Respect." He pointed at my desk, shaking his head. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No," I said. "It makes the company safe." He left without slamming the door. That was the only dignity he kept. By 5, the board's response came through. Unanimous acknowledgement, except his. Eli attached a line at the bottom. "Governance, shift noted. Continue Series A, prep under new structure." The silence after that email was the sound of balance restored. The same men who laughed at my accent now wrote my name correctly in every thread. That night, I walked home under the dull hum of streetlights. Power didn't feel loud, it felt clean. Control wasn't in titles, or applause, or charm. It was in understanding the paper everyone signs, but no one reads. In the end, I didn't raise my voice, I just changed the language of the room. Lisa called just after dawn. Her voice was steady, not warm. "We need a clean record," she said. "Meet me at the office at 8. I arrived early with coffee and a folder of receipts. She spread the minutes, consents, and filings across the table. "This is the chain," she said. "We will not break it." I nodded and kept my breathing even. Paperwork felt like rails under a heavy train. Once aligned, it moved without drama. She started with the protective provisions. "Section 6.2 is your wall," she said. "Unanimous consent for any governance change." She tapped the next page with a capped pen. "Section 6.4 activates independent oversight after a breach." I asked how we prove breach without a courtroom. "Contemporaneous notes, investor emails, and last night's clips," she said. "He promised seats in public." I slid my notebook forward and pointed to a timestamp. She smiled once. "You document like a CPA," she said. "That saves companies." We kept the legal talk short and moved to steps. "Today you chair a compliance session," she said. "Keep it brief and calm." I drafted an agenda with 3 lines. Acknowledge filings, confirm consent rule, set next investor timeline. Lisa edited nothing and nodded. "Simple survives," she said. Eli joined by speaker and asked for tone. "Even," I said. "No adjectives." He agreed and warned me about Mark's posture. "He'll aim for pity, then anger," Eli said. "Stay on rails." At 9, she called the investor counsel for a courtesy check. "We're aligned," the lawyer said. "Your filings match the agreement." Mark's counsel tried to join late. Lisa declined politely and scheduled another slot. "We don't debate signatures," she said. "We circulate them." I watched and learned, noting her stride. Authority didn't sound loud. It sounded organized. We finished the prep and stood in silence. The room felt ready, not theatrical. That was the goal. Mark texted 3 times before the call. The first said we were killing vibe. The second asked to reset optics. The third said, "You win," followed by a shrug emoji. I ignored all three and sent the dial in. Todd messaged asking if he should speak. I replied, "Only to confirm numbers." He sent a thumbs up and nothing else. Lisa looked up from the agenda and met my eyes. "You're calm," she observed. "I am," I said. Anger wastes precision. At 10 sharp, we opened the compliance session. I stated the purpose in one sentence. "We will confirm the governance rule and move forward." Mark tried to start with a story about early days. Lisa cut gently. "Acknowledgements first," she said. "Then comments." Eli said, "Received and understood." Todd said, "Received," with a steady voice. Mark sighed, then said, "Received," like a concession speech. I read section 6.2 into the record, slow and exact. Lisa logged each word like a court reporter. Mark asked to reframe the independent seat. "It makes us look broken," he said. I answered without emotion. "It makes us look audited," I said. "Audits raise trust." Eli added one line that helped. "Investors value breaks more than horns," he said. Mark laughed, but softer now. Lisa moved to the last item. "Timeline for Series A diligence," she said. "Data room opens Friday." I confirmed revenue packets and cohort charts. Todd confirmed on-time delivery metrics with the correct decimal. The call ended in 15 minutes. No drama, just signatures and time. Afterward, Lisa closed her laptop and leaned back. "You did exactly what was needed," she said. "No more, no less." I thanked her and asked about next risks. "Retaliation by narrative," she said. "He'll look for a crowd." I wrote the phrase on a sticky note. Retaliation by narrative. She added one instruction. "Keep talking in sentences the clerk could love." I smiled. "My sentences are built for clerks," I said. She gathered the papers and slid the signed minutes into a red folder. "Then we will be fine," she said. At lunch, Eli and I walked a block without speaking. He finally asked if I planned to replace Mark. "Not today," I said. "We need his sales, not his theater." Eli nodded like that answer matched his spreadsheet. "You bought yourself room," he said. "Use it to grow, not gloat." "I don't gloat," I said. "I file." He smiled into the wind. "That's why the round will close," he said. We shook hands, brief and respectful. Deals prefer hands like that. Back at the office, Lisa drafted a short all-hands note. "Governance confirmed. Filings complete," it read. "Focus, customers, reliability, and clean process." She asked me to add one sentence in my voice. I wrote, "We respect the work more than the room." She kept it, unchanged. Mark stayed quiet the entire afternoon. Quiet can mean plotting. It can also mean learning. I let the ambiguity sit and returned to code reviews. The engine did not care who chaired meetings. It cared about data that matched roads. Before I left, Lisa stopped by my door. "You know," she said, "you didn't win today because of law alone." I waited for her second clause. "You won because you didn't take the insult bait," she said. "The contract works when the person stays measured." I thought about the toast and the laughter in my steady mouth. "Discipline is cheaper than apologies," I said. She nodded once and headed for the elevator. The red folder was under her arm like a quiet guardrail. That evening, I walked past the restaurant from the toast. The windows glowed like they always do. New faces laughed about new stories. The city didn't remember our night. The filings did. I put a hand in my pocket and felt the outline of a pen. Some men keep knives for certainty. I keep signatures. The pen stayed capped. The point had already been made. Silence worked better than any speech when the boardroom filled. The table was smaller than the hotel's, and colder. Sunlight hit the edge of the conference phone like a spotlight. I took the side seat, not the head, and opened my notebook. Lisa set the red folder in front of her without ceremony. Eli sat across from me, shoulders square, voice unhurried. Mark arrived last, coat over his arm, eyes scanning for allies. Todd already had metrics open, which was the smartest thing he'd done all week. We began with the roll, then minutes. Lisa's tone never rose above calm. "We'll confirm filings, then operations," she said. Questions after acknowledgements. Mark tried to warm the room with a joke about paperwork dating life. No one laughed, and the silence did the work. I read section 6.2 again, steady as a metronome. "Governance changes require unanimous founder consent," I said. "This remains our rule." I didn't add commentary or glance for approval. Eli nodded once, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Mark leaned back, fingers tapping the table. "Look," he started, softer than usual. I was selling confidence. I let the quiet hold the sentence without answering. He waited for my reaction, then smirked. "So, Professor, what now? We vote on my tone?" Lisa tilted her head slightly. We vote on procedures, she said. Tone is free until it harms the company. Todd cleared his throat and slid a sheet forward. On-time delivery is 92.3, he said. Churn dropped 2 points. He met my eyes like a man asking to pass a test. Good, I said. Thank you. Eli spoke to the table, not to any person. 2 investors asked about independent oversight, he said. I told them it increased trust. Mark's jaw flexed, then settled. Trust is my job, he muttered. I answered without heat. Trust is everybody's job, I said. Documents do their share. The independent director, an operations veteran named Denise Holt, joined by phone. Her voice carried the weight of earned miles. Keep me bored, she said dryly. Bored is stable. Stable gets funded. Mark tried to charm her. She ignored it and asked for the agenda. We moved through the numbers like carpenters measuring twice. I kept my sentences short and my hands still. Lisa marked each acknowledgement with a stroke, slow and clean. When questions opened, Mark pounced on optics. Can we publicly soften the independent seat? He asked. It reads like mistrust. Denise answered before I could speak. It reads like adulthood, she said. Investors prefer breaks over slogans. Eli folded his hands. We're not revising the filing, he added. We're using it. Mark pivoted to personality, reaching for the only tool he trusted. This ice is why I do rooms, he said. He does paragraphs, I do people. I let the insult pass and asked one question. What commitment did you make last week? He blinked. What? I repeated the question exactly as written. He stared at the table, then said, I suggested a seat if the fund anchored. Lisa wrote the words slowly. Suggested, she repeated. Not offered? Mark nodded reluctantly. Suggested. Denise spoke again. Don't suggest what you can't deliver, she said. Next time, say our process. I turned to Todd. Any vendor credits promised as incentives? He shook his head. No credits without purchase orders, he said. We kept terms standard. I nodded and wrote one word. Discipline. The room's temperature shifted a few degrees toward adult. Eli opened the next slide and kept us moving. Pipeline is solid, he said, but we present governance first in every meeting. Mark frowned. We lead with numbers, he insisted. Eli didn't flinch. We lead with the ability to keep numbers honest. During a pause, Mark tried one last angle. You really going to keep me under your thumb? He asked. I looked at him, not angry, clear. I'm keeping all of us under our signatures, I said. It's safer than anyone's thumb. He stared back, searching for mockery and finding none. His shoulders dropped a quarter inch. Fine, he said, as long as we close the round. Denise's voice cut in again. You'll close, she said, if you stop improvising law. We approved the investor timeline without debate. Lisa summarized the actions in 3 lines. Consent honored. Oversight active. Diligence open Friday. She looked around the table. Anything else? Mark rubbed his eyes and surprised himself. I owe the team an apology, he said, words tasting unfamiliar. He glanced at me, then looked away. That dinner was clumsy, he added. Won't happen again. No one clapped, thanked, or smiled. We accepted the statement like adults receiving a late package. Noted, filed, move on. As we stood, Eli lingered. You didn't rub it in, he said quietly. You let the paper talk. Paper has better memory, I said. He smirked. Investors noticed. Denise's voice returned briefly. Get back to work, she said. Bored next time. The line clicked off, leaving the room ordinary again. Ordinary as gold when companies are young. Mark walked beside me toward the door, slower than usual. You're not going to freeze me out? He asked. No, I said. I need you focused on closing, not improvising. He nodded, then risked a half smile. And the accent? He asked, trying for a joke with less bite. It ships code, I said. The contract ships governance. He huffed a laugh and didn't push farther. Progress measured in inches still measures. Lisa caught up with us at the hallway corner. You both have outreach at 3, she said. Keep intros short, terms clean. Mark nodded, glancing at her folder. You always carry that thing? She didn't look down. Only when men forget their agreements, she said. He lifted both hands in surrender. Copy, he said. Agreements remembered. She gave him nothing, then gave me a look that said, hold this line. I nodded because lines keep buildings upright. Back at my desk, I wrote a single paragraph for the investor memo. Governance is not a mood, it read. It's a structure we respect. No adjectives, no victory laps, just wood, nails, and a level. The engine cued another batch job and hummed like a healthy shop. In the glass reflection, I saw a man who preferred forms to applause. The world had laughed at that man 2 nights earlier. Today the world signed where he pointed. Before the day ended, I scheduled one more meeting for next week. Not a board session, not a performance. A brief ceremony with our notary to countersign the independent seat acknowledgement. No speeches, no clinking glasses, no stage. Just the quiet sound of pens on paper. A toast without words would come later, when signatures were dry and payroll cleared. That's the celebration I trust. I didn't plan a victory, I planned a signature. A week later, the notary arrived with a small stamp and a steady hand. We met in the conference room without an audience. Lisa laid out the independent seat acknowledgement, the board consent, and the conflict policy update. Denise joined by video, camera off, voice clear. Mark came in 5 minutes early and didn't reach for the head chair. Todd brought a pen that actually worked. Eli stood near the door, as if guarding quiet. Lisa began with a sentence that felt like a lock clicking. "This is a formality that preserves us," she said. "Nothing more, nothing less." Mark nodded, hands open on the table. "Let's sign," he said, voice level. The notary slid pages to each of us in turn. Pens scratched in unison, brief and final. Denise said, "Acknowledged," in that dry tone I had learned to trust. The notary stamped, stacked, and handed Lisa the set. No applause, no photos, no jokes. Just the sound of paper becoming record. We sat for a beat after the stamp. The silence felt like air after a storm. Mark looked at me without the old grin. "I'll say it," he began. "I messed up the room." I watched his face and let him finish. "I was selling confidence," he said. "I ended up selling us short." He cleared his throat and added, "I won't speak beyond my authority again." I nodded once. "Thank you," I said. "Stay with the numbers. They like you." He huffed a quiet laugh. "Numbers don't clap," he said. "They pay," I answered. "Better." Eli broke the spell with logistics. "Diligence opens in 30 minutes," he said. "2 partners want a quick walkthrough." Todd raised a hand, half joke, half habit. "I'll bring the metrics," he said. 92.3, I added. He smiled. "I know," he said, like a student repeating the right answer. Lisa tucked the stamped stack into her red folder. "Governance first," she reminded us. "Then revenue." Denise signed off with one last line. "Keep me bored," she said. "Bored is bankable." The call clicked silent. We returned to work the way normal people do, with small tasks. I reviewed a pull request about time windows on mountain routes. Todd posted a dashboard that refused round numbers. Lisa drafted a 1-paragraph investor note. Mark rehearsed an intro that mentioned the product before his name. Eli confirmed the order of slides. Governance, reliability, growth. It looked like a company again. At noon, we ate takeout at our desks. Mark wandered over and leaned against my doorframe. "You ever going to celebrate?" he asked. "We survived a week that kills startups." I looked at the whiteboard and the sticky notes. "We'll celebrate when the trucks run smoother," I said. "When a driver gets home earlier because our route saved him an hour." He nodded slowly. "You actually believe that?" he said. "I do," I said. "I built it that way." After lunch, a partner meeting started with a question I used to dread. "Who leads?" the investor asked. Mark looked at me, then back at the camera. "We do," he said. "He runs the engine and the paper. I run the room we're invited into." The investor smiled. "And who runs you when you drift?" Mark pointed at Lisa's folder. "That," he said. "The folder wins." The investor laughed, not at me, not at anybody, but at the calm honesty of the answer. We kept the call short and the promises smaller than the plan. The calendar filled the next week on its own. Late afternoon, the notary returned with a scanned copy for our records. I printed one page, the acknowledgement that created the independent seat. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to a photo from our first office behind the tire shop. In that photo, the coffee thermos leaned sideways, and my laptop balanced on a crate. I thought about the line from that life to this room. The same hands, the same work, the same preference for proof over posture. Only now, the proof had signatures. As sunset hit the glass, the team drifted out one by one. Todd said, "Night, boss," and then corrected himself. "Night, Ar-joon." Eli waved 2 fingers and promised to send a call summary. Mark paused at my door again, shoes quiet on the carpet. "You know," he said, "your accent never bothered me. I let the silence stretch until honesty had to show up. It did, I said. You weaponized it when you were nervous. He considered that, eyes steady for once. I won't again, he said. Hold me to it. The contract will, I said. We both smiled, small and real. Lisa was last to leave, red folder under her arm. We did enough today, she said. Go home. I shut my laptop and looked at the pinned page again. You know, I said, I had a line ready for the dinner. Something sharp. She raised an eyebrow. You didn't need it, she said. Paper spoke better. Paper spoke louder, I corrected. Better would have been respect from the start. She nodded. We got to respect anyway, she said. Route was longer. Arrival's the same. She stepped into the hall and lifted the folder slightly. Guardrails on, she said. Always, I replied. I walked home through the same streets where I'd once rehearsed pitches out loud. The restaurant where they mocked me glowed like always. New tables, new stories, same butter smell. I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, the useful kind that lets you see shape, not just edges. I stopped at a corner store and bought a small bottle of sparkling water. At home, I set a single glass on the counter. No speech, no witness, no cameras. I held the glass up to the kitchen light and spoke in the quiet. To the clause, I said. To the clerk who stamped it. To the pen that stayed capped until it counted. I took a drink and set the glass down next to my folder. Then I opened my notebook and wrote one more line. Speak softly. File clearly. Correct the room without raising your voice. I tore the page and pinned it beside the acknowledgement. The next morning we shipped a minor release that smoothed a messy handoff zone near the river. A dispatcher emailed to say a driver got home 40 minutes earlier than last Thursday. He attached a photo from a kitchen table. A kid with a paper crown, a sheet cake, a bedtime not delayed by traffic, no press, no runway slide, no toast, just a small human win, delivered by math and process. That's what I wanted all along. Respect that starts at work and ends at home. The people who laughed at my accent now listened to my punctuation. My voice never got louder. The room got clearer. Contracts do that when you write them with your spine. If my story hit close to home, give this video a like, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more real stories like mine.